The subject for this video is good practices for peer revision. We'll start off today by talking about what peer revision is not. Peer revision is not peer editing. Your goal today is not to go in and edit your peer's paper. You're not looking for grammatical mistakes or spelling errors. You're also not evaluating your peer's project. Today is not peer review. Instead, the goal for today is to revision, to help your peer to re-see their draft in a new way. A good place to start for peer revision is with the assignment sheet. So before you do anything else, I suggest you go back and reread our assignment sheet. In particular, I'd like you to pay special attention to the grading criteria. These are what we'll grade the revision drafts on, so these are a really important part of the revision process. When you start making comments on your peers' drafts, there are a few tips I can give you for making good comments. Good comments include a what, a why, and a how. I'll explain each of these in detail. A what is what specifically you are suggesting the writer change. Although sometimes this is really clear to you as the reader when you're writing the comment, sometimes it's hard for a writer to know what specifically you mean. There are a few ways that you can help with this. The first is to highlight what you're referring to in your comment. As you can see in this example, I've highlighted the first paragraph to let the writer know that that's what I'm referring to in my comment. You can also refer to the part directly in the comment itself. As you can notice here, I say your introduction paragraph might be better. So the writer can know that I'm referring to the introduction paragraph. But the best situation is when you do both. When you highlight the part you're referring to and refer to it in your comment. That way the writer can know what specifically you want them to work on. The next part of a good comment is the why. This is why the author should make the change that you're referring to. Or, to put it another way, how will it help their project be better? You have to keep in mind that the writer might not want to make this change, so you have to kind of convince them that the change will be in their best interest to make. The best way to do this is to refer specifically to the grading criteria and how the change you're suggesting will improve that grading criterion. So in my example here, I'm referring to the introduction paragraph. Your introduction paragraph might be better if you mentioned the genre you're choosing. We have a good what. The next part is the why. As you can see here, it says, this will help you make sure you have met the recognized genre criterion. So far, you don't mention the genre by name anywhere in your reflection. So we're referring to a criterion and telling them how they can improve their score for that criterion. The final part is the how. This is giving at least one suggestion for how to make the change. Even if the writer understands what the change needs to be and why they need to make the change, they might not have a good method for making the change on their own. So you should try to give a suggestion for how they can make that change. In my example here, I've added the how at the end. I say, your podcast reminds me a lot of the podcast we listened to from This I Believe. You can compare your narrative to that kind of narrative podcast or similar ones from This American Life or Snap Judgment. In my comment, I've given them a suggestion for how to incorporate the change that I'm suggesting. So now let's look at the whole comment together. At the beginning, we have the what. Your introduction paragraph might be better if you mention the genre you're choosing. It's very clear what we're referring to. We're referring to the introduction paragraph. Then we have the why. This will help you make sure you have met the recognized genre criterion. So far, you don't mention the genre by name anywhere in your reflection. So we know what criterion we're referring to, and we know that it's not yet met. And finally, we have the how. Your podcast reminds me a lot of the podcast we listen to from This I Believe. You can compare your narrative to that kind of narrative podcast or similar ones from This American Life or Snap Judgment. When you're commenting on your peers' projects, I encourage you to make sure you're always including a what, a why, and a how. This will help your peers use what you're suggesting much more easily, and they can use it to help improve their project for their revision draft.